Zareth pressed her hands against the control panel of her small ship. The metal felt cold under her blue skin. Her silver eyes were wet with tears that would not stop falling. 3 days ago, her bondmate Kethra had died in a mining accident on the far edge of space. The pain in her chest felt like a fire that burned but never went out. The Velthari people felt everything deeply. When one of them hurt, others felt it too through their mind connections. Zareth's grief was so strong that it was making others sick. The Council of Elders had told her she must leave. She needed to find a quiet world where her pain would not hurt others. Earth was listed in their records as a safe place. The humans there were not telepaths. They could not feel her emotions. It was perfect for what she needed to do. She would go there, let her grief consume her, and die quietly as was proper for a widow of her people. But something went wrong with her ship as she entered Earth's atmosphere. The pain in her mind was too strong. She could not focus on the controls. The ship shook and spun as it fell through the clouds. Sparks flew from the damaged systems. The camouflage generator that made her ship invisible broke with a loud crack. Zareth crashed into the ground with tremendous force. The impact threw her against the wall. Everything went black. When she woke up, her head hurt badly. She could taste blood in her mouth. The ship was half buried in dirt and twisted metal. Through a crack in the hull, she could see wide open land covered in grass. Strange four-legged animals moved in the distance. The sky above was a color she had never seen before, a bright blue that made her eyes water. She tried to stand but fell back down. Her disguise projector was broken. Without it, she looked like what she really was. Her skin was the color of deep ocean water. Her eyes were large and silver like twin moons. She was taller than most humans and moved in a way that seemed to flow like water. The communication device was also broken. She could not call for help. She could not even tell her people where she was. Fear mixed with her grief. She had wanted to die, but not like this. Not alone and broken on a strange world. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky and began to set. Zareth grew weak from her injuries. She started to think she would die here after all, but not in the peaceful way she had planned. Then she heard the sound of an engine. A vehicle was coming across the grassland toward her crash site. Panic filled her. The humans were not supposed to be able to see her ship. If they found her, they might hurt her or capture her. She tried to crawl deeper into the wreckage to hide. The engine sound stopped. Heavy footsteps approached. A man's voice called out, but she could not understand the words. The universal translator was broken like everything else. Hello? Is someone in there? I saw the crash from the ridge. The voice sounded concerned, not angry or afraid. Zareth stayed very still and hoped the human would go away. Instead, the footsteps came closer. A shadow fell across the crack in the hull where light was coming in. I know someone's in there. I can see movement. Are you hurt? Jake Martinez had been riding the fence line when he saw something fall from the sky. It had looked like a meteor at first, but meteors did not leave trails of silver smoke. When he got closer, he could see it was some kind of aircraft, but unlike any plane he had ever seen. The metal was smooth and had no visible seams. It seemed to shimmer in the fading light. Jake was a simple man who ran cattle on his family's ranch in Montana. He had been born here, grew up here, and expected to die here someday. He did not know much about advanced technology or space travel, but he knew when someone needed help. I'm coming in, he called out. Don't be afraid. Jake found a gap in the wreckage big enough to crawl through. Inside, the ship was full of strange lights and surfaces that looked like they were made of crystal. And there, huddled in a corner, was the most unusual person he had ever seen. Zareth looked up at the human with terror in her silver eyes. She expected him to scream or run or attack her. Instead, Jake's face showed only concern and kindness. Well, I'll be, he said softly. You're not from around here, are you? Jake could see that she was badly hurt. There was purple blood on her blue skin. One of her arms hung at a wrong angle. She was shaking from pain and fear. Without thinking about how different she looked, he reached out his hand to her. It's okay, he said in a gentle voice. I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Jake. Can you understand me? Zareth stared at his outstretched hand. In her culture, touching a stranger was almost unthinkable. But something in this human's eyes made her feel safe. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and touched his fingers with her own. Jake's skin was warm and rough from years of hard work. His touch was gentle despite his calloused hands. For the first time since Kethra's death, Zareth felt something other than pure grief. She felt a tiny spark of hope. "There we go," Jake said with a small smile. "Let's get you out of here and somewhere safe. Can you walk?" Zareth tried to stand but fell back down with a cry of pain. Without hesitation, Jake moved closer and carefully lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, and her skin felt cool against his warm hands. "Don't worry," he told her as he carried her out of the wreckage. "I've got you. Everything's going to be all right." As they emerged into the evening air, Zareth looked up at Jake's face. This human stranger was risking himself to help someone he had never seen before, someone who did not even look like his own kind. She did not understand why he would do such a thing, but as Jake carried her toward his truck, speaking soft words of comfort, Zareth began to think that maybe Earth was different from what she had expected. Maybe the humans were different too. Jake carried Zareth to his old pickup truck. The seats were worn and patched with tape, but they were clean. He set her down gently and helped her lean back against the headrest. She winced as her broken arm moved, but she did not cry out. "I live about 10 miles from here," Jake said as he started the engine. "It's not much, but it's warm and dry. I've got medical supplies too." Zareth could not understand his words, but his tone was calm and reassuring. She watched his face as he drove. There were lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent squinting in the sun. His hands on the steering wheel were steady and sure. This human seemed to know how to take care of things. The truck bounced along a dirt road as the last light faded from the sky. Zareth looked out the window at the endless grassland, so much open space. On her homeworld, people lived in great cities that reached toward the clouds. Here there was nothing but land and sky as far as she could see. Jake's house was small and simple. It was made of wood and stone, with a metal roof that had seen better days. A few cattle stood in a nearby field, dark shapes against the starlit grass. The whole place felt peaceful in a way that surprised Zareth. Inside, the house was neat but clearly lived in. There were pictures on the walls showing a beautiful woman with dark hair and kind eyes. The furniture was old but comfortable. Everything had the feeling of a home that had been loved for many years. Jake helped Zareth sit on his couch. He brought her a glass of water and some clean towels. Then he pointed to himself and said his name slowly. "Jake." He pointed to her and raised his eyebrows in question. "Zareth," she said quietly. Her voice had a musical quality that made her name sound like a song. "Zara," Jake repeated, smiling. The way he said it was simpler than her real name, but it sounded good in his voice. Jake went to get his first aid kit. He had learned basic medical care from years of taking care of sick animals and the occasional ranch hand injury. Zareth's broken arm needed to be set and splinted. He worked carefully, trying not to cause her more pain than necessary. As he wrapped her arm, Zareth studied his face. This human was being so gentle with her, so kind. Among her people, strangers were viewed with suspicion. Help was given only to family and close friends. Yet this Jake person was treating her like she mattered to him. While Jake worked on her injuries, Zareth noticed something else. She could sense sadness in him. Not the sharp, overwhelming grief that filled her own heart, but a deeper, older pain. It was like a scar that had healed but still ached when the weather changed. When Jake finished bandaging her arm, he sat back and looked at her with concern. He could see she was exhausted and hurt. But there was something else in her strange silver eyes, a pain that went deeper than physical injury. "You've lost someone," Jake said softly, even though he knew she could not understand the words. "I can see it in your eyes." Zareth tilted her head, trying to understand what he was saying. Jake got up and walked to one of the pictures on the wall. It showed him with the dark-haired woman, both of them smiling. They looked happy together. "Maria," Jake said, touching the picture gently. "My wife." He pointed to himself, then to the woman, then made a gesture that seemed to indicate they had been together. Then Jake's face grew sad. He looked down at the floor and shook his head slowly. "Cancer," he said. 2 years ago, Zareth did not know the word cancer, but she understood loss. She could see it in the way Jake's shoulders slumped, in the way he touched the picture like it was precious. This human had felt the same terrible pain that was eating her alive. Zareth pointed to her own chest over her heart. Her eyes filled with tears again. "Kethra," she whispered. Then she made a gesture that showed something breaking apart, falling away. Jake nodded. He understood. They both had lost someone they loved more than life itself. For a moment they sat in silence, sharing their grief without words. Over the next few days, Jake took care of Zareth like she was family. He made sure she ate even though the human food tasted strange to her. He changed her bandages and checked her healing. Most importantly, he talked to her constantly even though she could not understand most of what he said. Jake told her about his life on the ranch, about the cattle he raised and the horses he trained, about his father Carlos, who had taught him everything about working the land, about Maria, who had filled the house with laughter and flowers from her garden. He also told her about loss, about how empty the house felt after Maria died, about how he had wanted to give up, to sell the ranch and move away, but something had kept him here, some stubborn part of him that refused to quit. "I learned something after Maria passed," Jake said one evening as they sat on his porch watching the sunset. "Grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry." Zareth could not understand all his words, but she was starting to pick up some of them. More importantly, she was learning from watching him. Every morning, Jake got up and fed his animals. He fixed broken fences and checked on sick cattle. He called his neighbors to see how they were doing. He kept living, even though his heart was broken. This was very different from the Velthari way. When one of her people lost a bondmate, they retreated from the world. They sat in dark rooms and let their grief consume them until there was nothing left. It was considered honorable to die of a broken heart. But Jake seemed to be doing the opposite. He was using his pain to fuel his care for others. He was letting his love for Maria live on in how he treated the world around him. On the third day, Zareth found Jake in his workshop, trying to fix a broken piece of equipment from her ship. He had brought several small devices back from the crash site, hoping they might help her communicate or signal for rescue. One of them was her universal translator. Jake had no idea what it was, but he could see it was sophisticated technology. He was carefully taking it apart, trying to understand how it worked. Zareth watched him work. His hands were gentle but confident as he examined the alien components. When he came to a part he did not understand, he would study it from different angles, thinking carefully before touching anything. After several hours, Jake had the device partially reassembled. It still did not work, but he had identified what seemed to be the damaged parts. He looked up at Zareth and pointed to the broken components, then to his workbench where various electronic parts were scattered. "Maybe we can fix this together," he said. "You understand how it works, and I know something about electronics." Zareth nodded eagerly. She moved closer to the workbench and began to show Jake how the pieces fit together. Their hands touched as they worked, his warm and calloused, hers cool and smooth. But they were both gentle and patient with each other. It took 2 more days, but finally the translator sparked to life. The first words Jake heard in Zareth's musical voice translated into English were, "Thank you. Thank you for helping me," she continued, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for being kind to a stranger. Thank you for showing me that there is still goodness in the universe." Jake smiled and patted her shoulder gently. "That's what neighbors do for each other, Zara. That's what being human is all about." For the first time since Kethra's death, Zareth felt something besides grief in her heart. She felt gratitude and wonder, and a tiny growing seed of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was another way to honor the dead than simply dying with them. Now that they could talk to each other, Zareth learned more about Jake's daily life. Every morning before dawn, he walked out to check on his cattle. He made sure they had clean water and enough grass to eat. If any of them were sick or hurt, he took care of them right away. "Come with me today," Jake said one morning as he put on his worn cowboy hat. "Fresh air will help you heal faster." Zareth did not want to go. On her world, people who were grieving stayed inside and avoided others. But Jake's eyes were kind, and she did not want to seem ungrateful. She followed him outside into the cool morning air. The ranch was bigger than it looked from the house. There were several hundred cattle spread across the grassland. They were large, peaceful animals with brown and black fur. Some of them had babies that stayed close to their mothers. "These are my girls," Jake said, patting one of the cows on the neck. "I've been taking care of some of their families for 3 generations. My grandfather started this ranch, and my father expanded it. Now it's my turn." Zareth watched as Jake moved among the animals. They trusted him completely. When he approached, they came toward him instead of running away. He knew each one by sight and could tell immediately if something was wrong. "That one there is Bessie." Jake pointed to a large brown cow. "She's the leader of this group. Smart as a whip and twice as stubborn. And over there is Daisy. She's due to have a calf any day now. As they walked through the herd, Jake taught Zareth how to spot signs of illness or injury in the cattle, how to tell if they were getting enough food and water, how to move slowly and calmly so the animals would not be afraid. At first, Zareth was nervous around the large animals, but they seemed to sense her gentle nature. Soon, some of the braver ones were coming up to sniff her strange blue skin and silver eyes. Their warm breath made small clouds in the cool air. "They like you," Jake said with a smile. "Animals are good judges of character." After checking the cattle, they moved on to other chores. Jake showed Zareth how to fix broken fence posts and repair gates, how to check the water pumps and clear debris from the irrigation ditches. Every task had a purpose and everything connected to everything else. "A ranch is like a big puzzle," Jake explained as they worked. "Every piece has to fit together right or the whole thing falls apart. The grass feeds the cattle. The cattle provide income to buy more grass and fix the equipment. The equipment helps us take care of more cattle. It's all connected." Zareth found herself drawn into the rhythm of the work. There was something soothing about having simple, clear tasks to complete. Each small job had a beginning and an end. When you finished one thing, you could see exactly what you had accomplished. This was very different from her life on the Velthari homeworld. There, everything was done with advanced technology. Machines handled most physical tasks. People spent their time in mental pursuits, exploring complex thoughts and emotions through their telepathic connections. But here, working with her hands, Zareth felt more grounded than she had in weeks. The physical movement helped quiet the constant ache in her heart. For minutes at a time, she could focus entirely on the task at hand and forget about her pain. In the evenings after the work was done, Jake and Zareth would sit on the porch and talk. Jake told her stories about Maria, about their life together on the ranch. He did not just talk about her death, but about her life, the way she laughed at his bad jokes, how she could make anything grow in her garden, the plans they had made for the future. Maria wanted to expand the vegetable garden, Jake said one night, pointing to a patch of ground near the house. She had all these ideas for selling fresh produce at the farmer's market in town. She was always thinking of ways to make things better. "It must hurt to remember," Zareth said quietly. "Among my people, we try not to think about those we have lost. The pain is too great." Jake was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. "It does hurt," he admitted. "But it hurts good, if that makes any sense. Like stretching a sore muscle. The pain means the love is still there, still real. I'd rather carry that pain than forget her." This idea was revolutionary to Zareth. Her people believed that continuing to love someone after they died only prolonged suffering. The goal was to let go completely, to allow grief to burn away all attachment until nothing remained but emptiness. But Jake seemed to be suggesting something else. That love could continue even after death, that memories could be a source of strength instead of just pain, that honoring the dead did not require abandoning the living. One day, while they were working in the barn, they heard a commotion from the pasture. One of the cows, Daisy, was having trouble giving birth to her calf. Jake grabbed his medical supplies and ran toward the struggling animal. "Stay back," he called to Zareth. "This could get dangerous." But Zareth followed anyway. She had some medical training from her time as a telepathic healer. Maybe she could help. Daisy was lying on her side, breathing heavily. Jake could see that the calf was in the wrong position. He would need to turn it manually, which was difficult and risky for both mother and baby. "I need to reach inside and guide the calf," Jake said, rolling up his sleeves. "It's going to hurt her, but there's no other way." Zareth knelt down beside Daisy's head. Without thinking, she placed her hands gently on the cow's face and sent out calming thoughts. She could not establish a full telepathic connection with the animal, but she could project feelings of peace and safety. Daisy relaxed immediately. Her breathing became slower and more steady. Jake stared in amazement as the cow that had been thrashing in pain became completely still and cooperative. "How did you do that?" he asked. "My people can share thoughts and feelings," Zareth explained. "I cannot speak to her like I would to another Velthari, but I can help her feel less afraid." With Daisy calm and relaxed, Jake was able to carefully reposition the calf. Soon, a healthy baby cow was born, wet and shaky but breathing strong. Daisy began licking her new baby clean, making soft sounds of contentment. Jake and Zareth sat back in the grass watching the new mother care for her child. They were both covered in mud and exhausted, but they were smiling. "We make a good team," Jake said. "Your calming touch and my hands-on skills. Maybe we should go into business together." Zareth laughed, a sound that surprised her. She had not laughed since Kethra died. But here, sitting in the grass after helping bring new life into the world, laughter came naturally. As the days passed, Zareth found herself looking forward to the morning chores. She began to understand the satisfaction Jake felt in caring for his animals and his land. There was honor in simple work done well. There was peace in being useful to others. But there was also something else growing in her heart. Something she was afraid to name. She was starting to feel happy again. Not the deep, connected joy she had shared with Kethra, but a quieter, steadier contentment. The kind that came from knowing you had a place in the world and work that mattered. One evening, as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Zareth turned to Jake. "Among my people," she said slowly, "widows are expected to waste away from grief, to die of broken hearts. It is considered the proper way to honor our lost mates." Jake nodded, listening carefully. "But watching you," she continued, "seeing how you live after losing Maria, I think my people might be wrong. You honor her memory by continuing to live, by taking care of others, by building something good in the world." "Maria wouldn't want me to give up," Jake said simply. "She'd want me to keep going, to find ways to be happy again. That's who she was." Zareth looked out at the peaceful ranch, at the cattle grazing in the distance, at the garden where Maria had once grown flowers. She thought about the calf they had helped deliver, about the simple satisfaction of a day's work well done. "I think Kethra would want the same for me," she said softly. "I think he would want me to live." For the first time since her mate's death, Zareth allowed herself to imagine a future. Not the empty, grief-filled existence her people expected, but something else, something with purpose and meaning, something that honored Kethra's memory by celebrating life instead of embracing death. She did not know what that future would look like yet, but sitting here with Jake, watching the stars come out over Montana, she was beginning to believe it was possible. 3 weeks after the crash, Zareth finally managed to repair her ship's long-range communication system. The device hummed to life in Jake's workshop, filling the small room with strange blue light. Jake watched nervously as alien symbols scrolled across the display. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Once you contact your people, there's no going back." Zareth hesitated, her finger hovering over the activation button. In the past weeks, she had changed in ways she never thought possible. The constant ache of grief was still there, but it no longer controlled her every thought. She had found purpose in helping Jake with the ranch. She had discovered that healing could come through caring for others, but her people expected her to return. The Velthari had rules about grief and mourning. She was supposed to come home and surrender to her pain until it consumed her completely. "I have to let them know I am alive," she said finally. "They will be worried." She pressed the button. Static filled the air for several moments, then cleared into voices speaking in the musical language of her homeworld. "Zareth of the Silver Path. Respond immediately." The voice belonged to Elder Mordan, head of the Grief Council. "Your emotional disturbance has disrupted our entire telepathic network. You must return at once." Zareth closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of her people's expectations. "I am alive, honored Elder, but I am not ready to return." "Not ready?" The Elder's voice rose in shock. "You have been gone for 23 days. Your mourning period should be complete. You should be preparing for the final release." The final release. Zareth had almost forgotten about that ritual. When a Velthari had grieved long enough, they were expected to let go of all connections to life and fade away peacefully. It was considered the highest honor for a widow. "I need more time," Zareth said, looking at Jake. He could not understand her words, but he could see the distress on her face. "Impossible," Elder Morden replied. "Commander Veltar is already en route to retrieve you. He will arrive in 2 of your local days. Prepare yourself for immediate transport home." The communication ended abruptly. Zareth slumped in her chair, feeling the weight of her people's disapproval across the vast distance of space. "What did they say?" Jake asked gently. "They are sending a ship to take me home," Zareth explained. "My people believe I have been away too long. They think the human world has corrupted my grief process." Jake was quiet for a long moment. "And what do you think?" Zareth looked around the workshop, at the tools Jake had used to help repair her equipment. at the pictures of Maria on the windowsill, at the simple, honest life this human had built from love and loss and determination. "I think they are right," she said slowly. "This world has changed me. You have changed me. I am not the same person who crashed here 3 weeks ago." "Change isn't always bad," Jake said. "Sometimes it's exactly what we need." 2 days later, a sleek silver ship appeared in the sky above the ranch. It was 10 times larger than Zarath's small vessel, and equipped with advanced weapons systems. Jake stood beside Zarath in the pasture, watching the alien craft land with silent precision. A ramp lowered from the ship's belly. Commander Veltar emerged, followed by several guards in crystalline armor. The commander was tall even by Velthari standards, with pale blue skin and cold silver eyes. He moved with the rigid posture of someone who had never questioned authority. "Zarath of the Silver Path," he called out in accented English, "you will come with us immediately. Your contamination by this primitive world ends now." Jake stepped forward, placing himself between Zarath and the alien soldiers. "She's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go." Commander Veltar looked at Jake with disgust. "You are a human. Your opinion is irrelevant. Zarath belongs to our people. She has obligations." "The only obligation anyone has is to be true to themselves," Jake replied firmly. "Zarath is her own person. She gets to choose her own path." The commander ignored Jake and addressed Zarath directly. "Look at yourself. Look what this place has done to you. You should be deep in proper mourning, preparing for the final release. Instead, you stand here contaminated by alien emotions, corrupted by their primitive ways of thinking." Zarath felt the familiar pull of her people's expectations. For all her life, she had been taught to obey the elders, to follow the ancient ways. The commander's words carried the weight of thousands of years of tradition, but she also felt something else. The memory of helping deliver Daisy's calf, the satisfaction of a hard day's work on the ranch, the peace she had found in Jake's simple way of honoring the dead by caring for the living. "I have learned things here," she said quietly. "Things that might help our people." "Impossible," Commander Veltar snapped. "These humans are barely evolved beyond animals. They have nothing to teach the Velthari." Jake's hands clenched into fists, but he controlled his temper. "Maybe that's your problem right there. Thinking you're better than everyone else. Zara's learned more about healing in 3 weeks here than she probably did in years on your world." Silence. The commander raised his hand and energy crackled around his fingers. "I will not be lectured by a primitive creature." But before he could attack, Zarath stepped between them. "Stop," she said firmly. "Violence is not the answer. It never is." Commander Veltar stared at her in shock. "You defend this human? You choose its words over the wisdom of your own people?" Zarath looked back at Jake, then at the ranch where she had spent the happiest week since Kethra's death. She thought about the cattle depending on Jake's care, about the garden where Maria's flowers still bloomed, about the simple human truth that love could survive death and transform pain into purpose. "I choose understanding," she said. "I choose life. I choose to honor Kethra's memory by living, not by dying." The commander's face twisted with anger. "You have been corrupted beyond redemption. You will return with us by force if necessary." He gestured to his guards who raised their energy weapons. Jake reached for the hunting rifle he had brought from the house, knowing it would be useless against alien technology, but determined to protect Zarath anyway. "Wait," Zarath said, raising her hands. "There is another way." She walked to her own damaged ship, which Jake had helped her partially repair. The weapon systems were still functional, even if the engine was not. She activated the controls with practiced ease. "I invoke the right of exile," she announced, her voice carrying across the pasture. "I claim sanctuary on this world and renounce my citizenship in the Velthari collective." Commander Veltar's eyes widened in shock. "You cannot be serious. Exile is a death sentence. You will never be able to return home." "This is my home now," Zarath said simply. She powered up her ship's defensive systems, which locked onto the commander's vessel. "Leave this place. Leave this world. Do not return." For a tense moment, the two ships faced each other across the Montana grassland. Jake held his breath, waiting to see which side would fire first. Then Commander Veltar lowered his weapons. "Very well," he said coldly. "You have made your choice. But know this, the Velthari will not forget your betrayal. You are dead to us now." "I was already dead," Zarath replied. "This human taught me how to live again." The commander and his guards returned to their ship without another word. The silver vessel rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars, leaving Zareth and Jake alone in the peaceful pasture. Jake walked over to where Zareth stood beside her damaged ship. She was shaking, not from fear but from the magnitude of what she had just done. She had given up everything, her people, her world, her entire identity as a Velthari. "Are you okay?" Jake asked gently. Zareth looked around at the ranch that had become her sanctuary, at the cattle grazing peacefully in the distance, at the man who had shown her that kindness could exist between strangers, that healing could come through caring for others. "I am better than okay," she said, surprised to find that it was true. "I am home." Jake smiled and put his arm around her shoulders in a gesture of friendship and support. "Well then," he said, "I guess we better get back to work. Those cattle aren't going to feed themselves." As they walked back toward the house together, Zareth felt something she had not experienced since Kethra's death. She felt free, free from the weight of expectations, free from the prison of endless grief, free to choose her own path and build her own future. The choice had been difficult, but it had also been clear. She could return to her people and fade away in proper mourning, or she could stay here and learn to live again. Jake had shown her that there was honor in both options, but only one led to hope. She had chosen hope. She had chosen life, and for the first time in weeks, that choice felt absolutely right. 6 months had passed since Commander Veltar's ship disappeared into the star-filled sky. The seasons had changed from the green warmth of summer to the golden colors of autumn. Zareth had changed too, in ways that went deeper than the weather. She now went by the name Zara Martinez. To the people in the nearby town of Cedar Falls, she was Jake's cousin who had come to help with the ranch after a family tragedy. The story was simple and believable. No one asked too many questions about her unusual appearance. They just assumed she had some exotic heritage. The ranch was thriving. With Zara's help, Jake had made improvements that increased both the health of his cattle and the productivity of his land. She used her advanced knowledge carefully, disguising alien technology as clever human innovations. The water system now worked more efficiently thanks to filters based on Velthari crystal technology. The pastures grew greener and healthier because of soil treatments that Zara had adapted from her homeworld's agricultural science. The cattle were healthier than they had ever been, protected by medical techniques that seemed like natural remedies to human eyes. "I've never seen anything like it," said Dr. Pete Wilson, the local veterinarian, as he examined one of Jake's bulls. "Your cattle are the healthiest in the county. Whatever you're doing, you should teach it to the other ranchers." Jake and Zara exchanged a quick glance. They had become experts at hiding the true source of their success. "Just good old-fashioned care and attention," Jake said with a modest smile. "My cousin here has some interesting ideas about animal husbandry." Dr. Wilson nodded approvingly. "Well, keep up the good work. The whole valley is talking about the Martinez Ranch. You're becoming quite the success story." After the veterinarian left, Jake and Zara sat on the porch with cups of coffee, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. "Do you ever regret it?" Jake asked quietly. "Giving up your old life for this one?" Zara considered the question. She thought about her homeworld, with its crystal cities and telepathic connections, about the advanced technology and the deep philosophical discussions that filled Velthari days, about the bond she had shared with Kethra, so intense and complete that losing it had nearly destroyed her. "Sometimes I miss certain things," she said honestly. "The way thoughts could be shared instantly between minds. The beauty of our cities when the twin suns set behind the crystal spires. The feeling of being truly understood by another consciousness." Jake nodded. He could hear the longing in her voice. "But I do not regret my choice," Zara continued. "Here I have learned something my people never understood. Love does not end with death. It transforms. It becomes something else, a way of living that honors those we have lost." As if to prove her point, Zara stood and walked to the edge of the porch. There, in what had once been Maria's garden, new flowers bloomed in patterns that would have been familiar to any Velthari. Crystal formations that Zara had grown using her people's technology were arranged among earth plants, creating a memorial that bridged two worlds. "Kethra would be amazed by this place," she said, touching one of the crystal formations gently. He always believed that different species could learn from each other. He would love seeing his memory honored alongside Maria's. Jake joined her in the garden. Over the months, he had helped Zara create this unique memorial. They had planted earth flowers in the sacred geometric patterns of Velthari remembrance gardens. The result was something beautiful and peaceful, a place where two very different traditions had merged into something new. I think Maria would have liked it too, Jake said. She always said the best gardens were the ones that brought different things together. Their quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of a car coming up the long driveway. Dr. Laura Scott, the town's physician, was driving slowly toward the house. In the passenger seat sat her teenage daughter, Lucy. "Something's wrong," Jake said, recognizing the worried expression on the doctor's face. "They wouldn't be coming out here at this time of evening unless it was important." Dr. Scott parked and hurried toward them, Lucy following behind. The teenager looked pale and frightened, her eyes darting around nervously. "Jake, Zara, I'm sorry to bother you," Dr. Scott said, "but I need your help. Something strange is happening with Lucy, and the regular doctors can't figure out what's wrong." "What kind of strange?" Zara asked, though she suspected she already knew. "She's been hearing voices," Dr. Scott explained. "Not hallucinations, but actual thoughts from other people. She knew what I was thinking before I said it. She could tell me things about my patients that she had no way of knowing." Zara knelt down to Lucy's level, looking into the girl's frightened eyes. "It started a few weeks ago, didn't it? With strong emotions first. You could feel when people were very happy or very sad." Lucy nodded, tears streaming down her face. "How did you know?" "Everyone thinks I'm going crazy. The doctors want to put me on medication." "You are not crazy," Zara said gently. "You are experiencing something very rare and very special. Some humans have a natural ability that my people call mind-touching. It usually appears during times of emotional stress or growth." Dr. Scott stared at Zara in confusion. "Your people? What do you mean?" Jake and Zara exchanged a look. They had agreed to keep Zara's true nature secret, but this was different. Lucy needed help that only someone with telepathic experience could provide. "I think it's time for some honesty," Jake said quietly. Over the next hour, Zara carefully explained the truth about her origins and her abilities. Dr. Scott listened with the trained skepticism of a scientist, but the evidence was hard to ignore. Zara demonstrated her telepathic abilities by reading thoughts that no one had spoken aloud. "So Lucy is becoming telepathic?" Dr. Scott asked, still struggling to accept what she was hearing. "In a limited way, yes," Zara explained. "About 1 in 10,000 humans have the potential for mind-touching. It usually manifests during adolescence, triggered by emotional trauma or major life changes. Lucy had been through both recently. Her parents had divorced 6 months ago, and she was struggling to adapt to her new life. The stress had awakened abilities that had been dormant in her genetic code. Can you help her?" Dr. Scott asked. "Can you teach her to control it?" "I can try," Zara said, "but it will require trust. Lucy will need to spend time here, learning to manage her new abilities, and you will need to keep our secret." Dr. Scott looked at her daughter, who seemed calmer just knowing that someone understood what she was experiencing. "If you can help her," the doctor said, "I'll keep any secret you want." Over the following weeks, Lucy became a regular visitor to the ranch. Zara taught her meditation techniques to filter out unwanted thoughts. She showed her how to build mental barriers to protect her own mind from the emotions of others. Most importantly, she helped Lucy understand that her abilities were a gift, not a curse. "Your people use telepathy all the time," Lucy said one afternoon as they worked in the memorial garden. "It must be amazing to always know what others are thinking." "It can be overwhelming," Zara admitted. "That is why my people live in such controlled societies. When everyone can feel everyone else's emotions, there is pressure to conform, to avoid causing disturbance." "Is that why you like it here?" Lucy asked. "Because humans give you more privacy?" Zara smiled. "That is part of it. But I also like the way humans handle emotions. You do not try to eliminate pain or conflict. You use them to grow stronger." As autumn turned to winter, the ranch settled into a comfortable routine. Jake handled the physical work of caring for the cattle, while Zara used her abilities to monitor their health and emotional well-being. Lucy visited on weekends, continuing her telepathic training while helping with simple ranch chores. The three of them had become an unlikely family. Jake, the human cowboy who had lost his wife but found new purpose in caring for others. Zara, the alien widow who had chosen exile over despair. Lucy, the human girl learning to manage abilities that bridged two species. One snowy evening in December, as they sat around the fireplace in Jake's living room, Zara made an announcement. "I have been thinking about contacting the Velthari Council," she said. Jake looked up from the book he was reading. "Are you sure that's a good idea? They made it pretty clear how they feel about your choices. Not to ask for forgiveness," Zara explained. "To offer them something. A gift." She had been working on a project in secret, using her ship's communication array to create a detailed record of her experiences on Earth. Not just the technical information about human abilities, but the emotional and philosophical insights she had gained. "I want to show them another way to handle grief," she said. "The human way. The way that transforms pain into purpose." "Do you think they'll listen?" Lucy asked. She had become fascinated by stories of Zara's homeworld and its telepathic society. "I do not know," Zara admitted, "but I have to try. There might be other Velthari like me, suffering in silence because they believe surrender is the only option. If I can help even one of them find a different path, it will be worth the risk." Jake set down his book and looked at Zara with pride. Maria would have liked that idea. She always believed in helping others, even when it was difficult or dangerous. Kethra would have supported it too, Zara said. He always dreamed of building bridges between different worlds. The next,